Good day, everyone. Have you ever wondered why the Philippines has rainy and dry seasons? Or why some months feel cool and breezy while others are hot and stormy? So, the answer starts with one powerful source: the sun. So today, we will discover how solar energy affects our atmosphere and how it contributes to cloud formation, monsoons, and the intertropical convergence zone, or what we call ITCZ. So let's begin with the most important question. So what is the primary source of energy for Earth's climate system? So obviously, the answer is the sun. So solar radiation from the sun hits the Earth's surface. But here's something important. The Earth does not heat evenly. So places near the equator receives more direct sunlight, so they are warmer. Places near the poles receive less direct sunlight, so they are colder. This uneven heating creates temperature differences, and temperature differences creates wind. Now, let's connect this to cloud formation. 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 Now, let's connect this. So clouds form when warm, moist air rises into the atmosphere. So as it rises, it cools down, and when the air cools to its dew point, water vapor condenses into tiny droplets. So these droplets form around small particles into the air called condensation nuclei, such as dust or salt. So this process is part of the water cycle. So specifically, the condensation state. So remember this key point: cloud formation happens when warm air rises, cools, and condenses into water droplets. So remember this key point: cloud formation happens when warm air rises, cools, and condenses into water droplets. So remember this key. Now let's move to monsoons. Monsoons are seasonal wind patterns caused by the temperature differences between land and ocean. So because land heats up and cools down faster than the water, pressures differences. Monsoons are seasonal wind patterns caused by the temperature differences between land and ocean. So because land heats up and cools down faster than the water, pressures differences. Monsoons are seasonal wind patterns caused by the temperature develop between them. 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 Develop. In the Philippines, we experience two main monsoons: amihan and the habagat. So first, the amihan. So the northeast monsoon, this occurs from November to February, and it comes from Siberia and China. So the air is cool and dry. It usually brings light rains and cooler weather. That is why December and January often feels breezy and pleasant. Next, we have habagat, or what we call the southwest monsoon. So this occurs from June to October. So it comes from the Indian Ocean, wherein the air is warm and humid. Habagat brings heavy rainfall, strong winds, and sometimes flooding. Both monsoons are driven by solar energy because the sun hits land and water differently. So these temperature differences create pressure differences, and pressure differences creates wind. Now let's talk about the ITCZ, or what we call the intertropical convergence zone. So the ITCZ is a band of clouds near the equator where the trade winds from northern and southern hemisphere meet. When these winds converge, warm air is forced to rise. Rising air cools and forms clouds, leading to frequent rain and thunderstorms. So the ITCZ moves north and south depending on the position of the sun. When it shifts northward, it can bring heavy rainfall to the Philippines, and when it moves away, conditions become drier. So to understand this better, let's briefly look at the global wind pattern. So there are three main atmospheric cells. We have the Hadley cell from 0 to 30 degrees latitude, wherein warm air rises at the equator, creating low pressure at the ITCZ. It then moves toward 30 degrees latitude, cools, and sinks, forming high pressure areas. Next, we have the Ferrel cell from 30 to 60 degrees latitude. So this cell influences weather in temperate regions. Last, we have the polar cell from 60 to 90 degrees latitude. So cold air sinks at the poles, creating high pressure. So between the horse latitudes at 30 degrees and the ITCZ at 0 degrees, we find the trade winds. So these winds blow from east to west and play a major role in the tropical weather and monsoons. So what's the big idea? So solar energy hits the earth unevenly. Uneven heating creates temperature differences. So temperature differences creates pressure differences. So pressure differences creates wind. That's why wind movement influences cloud formation, monsoons, and the ITCZ. Without the sun, there would be no global winds, no monsoons, no ITCZ, and no weather as we know it. So the next time you experience heavy rains during the habagat or cool winds during amihan, remember it all begins with solar energy.